Welcome back, 1570 AM WNST. My next guest is a Mercurial, Nestor J. Aparicio. Nestor, welcome in.
Mercurial. Wow.
Mercurial.
I
You got
mean,
that Mercurial Coonsford shirt on that our listeners can't see, but I can certainly see you on our Zoom call. But looking swell today.
it's the end of the year. I haven't shaved yet, but I'm going to. And this Ravens fall from grace. Just on a personal side, I can't imagine taking phone calls, being the guy, Nasty Nestor, on the radio every day from 2 to 6 in 2008 if this had happened, right?
Right.
Like, this is a very, very unusual thing over 25 years that we're sitting here scratching ourselves on, first of the year saying, what happened? And it's very obvious what happened. I mean, to sit and have to make excuses for John Harbaugh to have to for John Harbaugh and Eric DeCosta to get on a plane and fly down and see Steve Bisciotti third week of January when they're eliminated and say what happened. It's pretty obvious what happened, right? It's like if something happened at your dealership where there was a snowstorm that shut you down for 4 months, your sales would be down.
Yeah, but I do think that the owner can ask questions such as how can Marcus Peters and Gus Edwards get hurt on back-to-back non-contact plays in practice? Is there something to our training program where we're not training our athletes off season or during the season properly so that way they can avoid injury? So I think as an owner, those are the questions that I would be asking us.
Well, and I guess as a fan, what do we ask in the next couple of weeks? I mean, I have sort of famously abdicated my season tickets. Thank you, Chad Steele. But these are the last two games of our run in the upper deck. I don't know if we're going to sit there. I didn't even check the weather, to be honest with you. I just know the chances of the real team showing up and win. I mean, they may win one of these games. I mean, they might win them both. Certainly Lamar limping around on Wednesday was not, unless they're playing possum, it was not the look we were looking for.
No, not by any stretch. But again, they have to do a lot of soul searching in the off season, no matter what the outcome. But again, right down to their practice fields now. So I think they need to. They've had the injury bug back what in 2007. They were really nicked up bad, particularly on the back end. But when you have 25 players on injury reserve, a situation that's exacerbated by the COVID, right? The COVID protocol now that the NFL has watered down from 10 days to 5 days. They're doing anything and everything they can, Ness, to get these games in, aren't they?
Yes, they are. And
Coming
and
to you
I
just in 3 days, right? We're going to go from 10 to 5 to 3 to look, if you don't have any symptoms, you never ever have to test, right? Just wink, wink, you're good.
It's incredible. And I think even the CDC and what's going on here and what look the predictions not to skew too far into politics, but if 40,000 people a week are dying, 3 weeks from now because people got together here and we're all kissing each other and happy champagning on New
Yep.
Year's Eve and all going to the football game. My son had a spate in his friendship. My son's 37. He's younger. Like the young kids these days. All of
Youngsters.
his friends went to the game 2 weeks ago and they all got COVID. And I said, are they not 2 years into the plague knowing they shouldn't be chipping and dipping
Yep.
into community dips at a tailgate? They're like knowing that that's probably not where you need to be. And I am concerned. I'm concerned for all of it, for people, just the philosophy that it's a plague, but it's just a cold now. Now it's just a cold. I don't know. The hospitals are full. Johnny O's slapping masks on you and me and
Yep.
Brandon Scott and Larry Hogan should be because hospitals are full. Like, I don't know what else to say that when the people, my wife's at the hospital literally as we speak right now, so I'll ask her how things are going. She's got her checkup. Today's just her end of the year. Just happens to be the day she's going to the hospital. But I am a little concerned about that, and I want people to be safe. And when leadership fails, then we find ourselves in a pickle, and hopefully we won't be. Hopefully it's just we're all going to wipe our nose and we're going to be fine and asymptomatic. And I got to get my third shot. I haven't gotten it yet. I'm sort of
Yeah.
in line in the next 24 hours. I wanted to do it on a weekend where if I don't wake up feeling so good on Saturday morning, but I need to get my booster, and I'm fully on board with vaccination and being safe and wearing masks and listening to the smartest people I can listen to, and the NFL's not doing that. And I don't, and that's the leadership position. I don't know where that's going to take us three
Hey.
weeks from now, or it's going to take these football teams because certainly playing games like the Saints did the other night, playing games like the Ravens did the other day, where I mean, that Ravens game the other day, I don't know if it would have helped us to move it to this Friday, quite frankly, given the state of the team. And maybe that's one of the reasons they didn't get on the phone and push and say, we want to play Monday, we want to play Tuesday, knowing they got to play the Rams Sunday anyway.
Right.
Um, and that game was such a walkover on Sunday. I mean, it was an embarrassment. They brought a quarterback in off the street to play 10 days in, and he actually played well. He played well enough to win.
He did.
He played offense well enough that if we had a real defense, the Ravens could have won that game in Cincinnati. So I'm rambling on a Thursday on your program, but it's been a tough time to hear disgruntled Ravens fans. And I was on Gary Vaynerchuk's show last week, and he's like, "You Raven fans have nothing to ever." It's like being a Patriot fan and being upset. But I sense some disappointment here, and I think the offseason will convey that with an 8-3 team that doesn't make the playoffs or gets bounced or whatever's going to happen here.
Well, there's a natural recency bias at play here, Ness. I mean, the team starts off 5-1, then they go to 8-3, and now they've lost 4 straight. So now the fan base is locking in on the last 4 versus, the first 11, 13 games. So have you?
What are you saying? I'd have trouble selling my tickets this week?
You won't have trouble, but they won't bring face value. Put it to you that way. You won't sell them at a premium at best. but that's the whole thing. So this notion of fire the coach and Lamar's no good and do not extend him and Greg Roman stinks and Wink has lost something off his fastball. You got to look at it in its totality. And if they win the next 2 games and get in some way find their way to the playoffs, I would venture to say it wouldn't be a stretch to put Coach Harbaugh's name in the Coach of the Year conversation. He's kept this ship together. He's still upbeat and positive. He's saying he's still having fun around these young men. And so, what more does a fan base want except for what we have, which is a consistent, a perennial playoff contender?
Well, in a more tender moment with John Harbaugh, if we should ever get together again sometime, it's been a couple years, I would ask him in the offseason if this kind of a week when it's, hey, John, meet your quarterback. Hey, Josh, meet John. Hey, you've played on 13 teams. That's kind of cool. Hey,
Yeah.
we're playing Cincinnati for the division this week. Here's the ball. Go figure it out. And then he actually does it. Does it better than I can name 15 quarterbacks that didn't look as efficient in a Ravens uniform as that cat did the other day. Like, literally. Chris Redman never looked that comfortable. Kyle Bowler never looked that comfortable. I can just go through the list of all of the Anthony Wrights and all of those guys that never looked that comfortable. It really was an amazing little microcosm of one thing with this 35-year-old guy who after the game just really felt like he was in a special place to have actually done it. And same thing with Tony Jefferson running around, and we talked about that earlier in the week. There are guys getting an opportunity here to play that they never thought that they would again, and it means everything to them, right? So, and it means everything to John Harbaugh. So John's been through all these look, it's one thing to go into Foxborough and beat Tom Brady's ass when you have the better team.
Right.
You know what I mean? When you can go in there and slap Tom Brady around because you're better than they are, because you've got Suggs, you've got Ray Lewis, you've got Joe Flacco in his prime, you've got all that going on. It's a whole different thing to try to piece together the remnants of an 8-3 team. Everybody's sick. Everybody's got COVID. John politically doesn't even agree with any of this. John watches Fox News. So, like, all of this testing and, like, mask. I mean, like all of this that is completely not disrupted. It was a disruption last year. It's destroyed their franchise this year to some degree, right? Let alone their quarterback not being vaccinated. Mama doesn't believe in it. Like all of this, right? And now they got to go give the kid $300 million, and they are going to walk with their tail between their legs all off season because this didn't work out. And there's some jackwagon yelling about it in Middle River wanting to fire all the coaches because they don't even understand 30 years into this that you cannot play secondary in this league on the road against Joe Burrow with guys that you just brought off the street. Like, it's just – you don't measure coaching on that. You know what I mean? You don't measure anything on that. That's why I haven't been pissed this week. Right. It's why my purple lights are still up. And it's why I'm not going to bury any of them. Well, maybe Chad Steele in the offseason based on my tickets. But none of the people that matter there, they did an unbelievable job this year, no matter how this goes on Sunday, because they're supposed to lose on Sunday, and Lionel's supposed to lose next Sunday. I mean, Steelers aren't much. That'll be more of a fist fight, a fair fight. But Roethlisberger's last game is going to be juicy.
It is.
But this Rams game, this is a tall task. They got help by moving the game to 1 o'clock, right?
They got a little bit of help, but again, to your point, the Ravens have lost their top 8 defensive backs, which is just unheard of. It really is a tremendous.
Dennis, can you imagine me taking phone calls from these people this week? Like, what would I say to you other than to just say, you're a miserable human being and you should go be a Caps fan or, like, find the next season. Go watch the Terps beat up on the third string at Blacksburg and feel good. We scored 54. We set pinstripe bowl records. Go feel good about something. There's been things to feel good about this week.
Let me say this to you, Ness, to give you an analogy. If I lost my top 8 sales representatives, my top 8, I'd be a lot worse general manager than I
wouldn't look so good.
I wouldn't look so good. I look better with them on my team, right? So no matter what your business is, and they have 53, I've got 23. So let's say, so me, it's a
You're a baseball
factor.
team at 23.
Yeah, so you know what I mean. So it's a force multiplier, as Coach Billick would say. It would be devastating for my organization. And again, does that make me a worse general manager? Of course it doesn't. It's just something that you have to deal with. And I've had to deal with turning over staffs, but this thing with the NFL between the injuries and the COVID protocol, it really is a hot mess.
From a management standpoint, and you and I can get into this in the off when the coals are a little more billowed, we'll talk about it. But it really is unbelievable. When I've spent private time with Brian Billick or Marvin Lewis or any of these people who manage any of this, right, that even if you're John Gruden and you're getting thrown out one week, the next week some kid you drafted in the first round's driving 180 miles an hour on a freeway killing girls. Like, it's just the freak that runs the Washington football team that can't get out of his own way because he's such a terrible human being that he can't – and then he's got players fighting on the bench. Like, all the drama – that goes into the league, and we all pay attention to it, but the management of that, management of kids making $30 million a year and trying to tell you how to – the management of having Aaron Rodgers run around like he's a biologist because he can throw a football, saying the most baddish stuff, like that has nothing to do with science or protocol or anything on radio shows. Like, and you can't stop it. You can't stop their Twitter. You can't unmanage them. You can't make Antonio Brown not go Facebook Live from your locker room. And if he can catch 120 balls, you got to keep him happy. It really is unbelievable, the managing of all of this and the scrutiny from the media and sponsors and fans and money. And it's why they make the big bucks, right? It's why John Harbaugh makes $10 million a year, right?
Well, and it doesn't really matter if you're watching Fox News or CNN. That your personal outlook on the COVID situation, for instance, really doesn't matter. You still have to deal with it. Doesn't matter which side of the fence you sit on. You still have to deal with the situation.
Not to get too political on your show, but to deny that it exists.
No, absolutely not.
And just say we're not going to wear a mask. That's not a political position. That's wishful thinking.
Well, you got to support it with data, right?
You have to support. A virus doesn't exist.
You have to support it with data. It's just like I tell my people when we have a situation and I have a position, we'll scrimmage and I'll tell them sell me on why. But you just can't say because that's what I think. That's what I think.
If I call the Maryland Hospital Association right now and get John Shashir on, call Neil Meltzer over at and we'll bring them in. We'll talk about how their hospitals are doing. Right. And would that be evidential enough?
Yeah.
You know what I'm
saying?
Look
at the data.
You
have to look at the data at some point. Support your position. And if you just say no, like a 5-year-old, this is what I think. This is just a lot of people think opposite of what you think.
It's what I want it to be. It's what I want the truth to be. It's my truth. It's my facts.
Your truth doesn't make it right,
my
though.
Science. Yes, exactly.
Right. But again, these are situations we also have to deal with in every organization in 2021. And I guess the NFL will just keep lowering the bar until they get what they want, right? When you have all that money at stake, I guess that's what you do. Your character goes out the window.
What hasn't helped it hasn't upped the Ravens to the playoffs.
No.
Whatever they're
Hey,
doing, it hasn't been helpful. Lamar standing upright, or Tyler Huntley this week, or whatever happens with the Rams. But I hope you have a great 22, man.
you too. Before I
I'm
let you
in
go,
great spirits. I
before I
mean,
let you go, tell me about John Madden real quick. The great late John Madden. I know, we got to talk about him. We got to pay him a small tribute
I
here
haven't talked about it at all,
and his
and I
greatness. I
haven't
mean,
even tweeted about it other than when he died. So John Madden, just as an aside for me, I was at the Ghost of the Post game in '77, right?
you
So
and
to
I
me,
both.
he was always the Raiders coach. He was a great coach. He was animated. He went on TV 5 minutes later. I was 12 years old when he and Summerall went on. I've seen that first broadcast. Through all of that, my best John Madden story is this. He only did a handful of games here with the Ravens, right? Because the Ravens were AFC. It was
Right.
early on. We stunk. I looked it up. The first Ravens game he ever did was that game where we freight trained Aikman here against the Cowboys Super
Yep.
Bowl year. He did 4 or 5 games ever. He did that Denver game where McAllister ran back in the put together year that was 02 or whatever. But he didn't do a lot of Ravens games. So I wasn't around him in that way. In the way that, and I'll tell you, little side here. I have peed. I'm not kidding you. And I'm straight up. I have peed in 20 stadiums with Al Michaels in the bathroom. It's uncanny because I pee during timeouts, and he's 70 years old, and he pees during timeouts. Tennessee, Kansas, there hasn't been a press box bathroom where I have literally not watched Al Michaels wash his hands after peeing with the earbud in, running back into the booth. I've done that with Troy Aikman, with a lot of people, but I've never done that with Madden. So Madden was very close with Kevin Byrne. And one of the problems with Madden is he was never here. So I never knew him, saw him, anything like that. He just wasn't around
Right.
the Ravens much in the way that Al Michaels has been around the Ravens. I mean, Al Michaels has probably called 40 or 50 Ravens games, in 25 years, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, given all that. I'll say this with Madden. Never really met him, talked to him. I've been in a room with him a bunch. He goes to the owners' meetings on the West Coast at the Biltmore. Every other year he would be there, and I would be 10 feet away on the veranda at the Biltmore. But he was always surrounded by his people. Sandy Montag, the people that were his friends, old school people. It was never intrusional for me to butt myself into a conversation with John Madden because he was at the next table. But one time, it's my 30th birthday, I was with Kevin Eck, and we were running around Las Vegas being 30-year-old guys in Las Vegas. And, so this is 23 years ago, 1998. Madden, the game's out. He's the biggest star, in football. The Ravens stink at this time because 1998, they're nothing.
Right.
And I'm walking out of Caesars across the street to the Flamingo Hilton on that little strip where you can't cross there anymore. It's too crowded at the strip, right? There's an overpass now, but this is 23 years ago. You literally would walk across the strip. And it was like a Wednesday night. There was nobody in Las Vegas. It was just empty. We went for my birthday, and it was quiet and whatever. And I look over, and there's John Madden and his wife. He's got his ball cap on. He looked like George Burns going in style. He had khakis on, all disheveled looking, ball cap on, just looked like an old fisherman. And he's walking along, and it's John Madden. And I said, John Madden! And he's like, yeah, how you doing? And that was it. And he didn't want to be recognized or whatever. And it wasn't like, but that's the only John Madden story I got for it. I got nothing. I got literally nothing. Everybody I knew John Madden, but I never stalked him out. And I'm a fan like everyone else, but I give him a boom is what I would give him if I had a moment with John Madden.
Well, he's a big reason why we all love football so much. Just the 10 years with the Raiders, the Super Bowl win, the voice, right? And of course the game, which I'm sure he probably made more money off of royalties from that game than anything else he ever did. And his family's going to be very well compensated going forward because of the game.
When people like him die, and the real tribute to anyone who dies comes in I've seen these tributes to Harry Reid the last couple of days, and when a musician dies or whatever. But Madden, the stories people have told about Madden are about his love for military people and taking care of families. He had like a hotel in California nobody knew about, and he would bring families of wounded veterans and different like John was a really special dude in that way. And my favorite story came from John Popovich, who is sort of the Vince Bagley of Cincinnati, kind of an old school, TV guy and a real street guy from Cincinnati. I have him on all. They call him Papo. He's a beloved figure in Cincinnati. He said his favorite Madden story, you go see it on Twitter, was there was a restaurant in Cincinnati, Michelin 5-star, one of the great restaurants in America. It's out of business now. It was called Masonette. I never ate there. I wanted to. It was a French restaurant, really high end, and I never ate there. It went out of business. I always wanted to, but I never did. And he said he had an interview with Madden. He went over to the hotel, the Westin, where I was always with the Ravens. I spent a bunch of New Year's Eves at the Westin in Cincinnati. And he said he went over to hang with Madden. And he asked Madden, why they were getting together now. He's like, they all went over to Masonette. I went to Skyline for chili. And Papo said that he had chili stains all over his shirt.
Yeah.
So there's a Madden story for you. I'm living vicariously. I wish I had a John Madden story. The only one I have is crossing the strip in Vegas one lonely night 25 years ago. So that's all I got for you, man.
I appreciate you just sharing that one with me, Nestor. I appreciate your time as always. Keep doing great things. We'll certainly catch up with you next week.
See, end of the year sharing, John. You're the last thing I'll do this year. So happy New Year.
Happy New Year as well.
Go beat the Rams. Let's go win.
You got it. There he goes. Nestor J. Aparicio here, 1570 AM WNST. We'll take a quick break. Come back right after this.